this is Miss Eckley, and this video is to introduce one of our most important factorings that we're going to do. This isn't going to be an actual polynomial factoring, but a procedure that we're going to use to factor trinomials. So the idea is that we need to look at a product and a sum at the same time. So what you're going to see in these X's, or sometimes called the diamond method, is we are going to find two numbers that multiply together to give us the top number, but when added, give us the bottom number. And as I said, this is sometimes called the diamond method, if you want to look up other videos online to help you. So looking at the first one, what you see is that in the top there is a 9, and that's what we're multiplying to get. So two numbers that multiply to give you 9, and when added, give you the bottom number. So two numbers that multiply to give you positive 9 and added give you negative 6. So those two numbers would be negative 3 and negative 3, because you can check. Negative 3 times negative 3 equals positive 9, and negative 3 plus negative 3 equals negative 6. The next one is 4. So we're multiplying to get 4 and adding to also get 4. So those two numbers are going to be 2 and 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 plus 2 is 4. Now the first two, the numbers were exactly the same, and that's not always true. When you go to number 3, what you see is that you have a negative 30 that we're multiplying to get, and on the bottom we have a negative 13. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us negative 30 and would add give us negative 13. Now if you're having problems trying to think of two numbers, because 13 and 30 don't usually think of those together, you can list the factors of 30 if you want, to see if you can find the set of factors. So we have 1 and 30. I can't add those together in any way to get 13, like positive or negative, anything like that. 2 and 15. Hold the farm. I think we got a winner there, because I can take a positive 2 and a negative 15 and get negative 13. Or you could write it this way: 2 minus 15 equals negative 13. Now, it doesn't matter which one goes first. I could write a 2 on the left and a negative 15 on the right, and the person next to me at their desk could write the negative 15 on the left and the positive 2 on the right. Because remember, multiplication and addition are commutative, so you can switch them around. So I'm going to go through and do these next 6 rather quickly, and then after that, you guys can do some on your own. So two numbers that multiply together to give you negative 84, and when added, give you 5. And now I want a positive 5, so what I want to recognize is that this top number is negative and the bottom number is positive. So that means I'm going to have one positive number and one negative number when I multiply to get a negative. And since the bottom is positive, that means the larger number has to be positive. So those two numbers are positive 12 and negative 7. The next one, same idea. I'm going to have one positive number because my multiplication is negative, and I'm going to need one negative number. Now on the bottom, the addition is negative, so that means the larger number has to be negative. So two numbers that multiply together to give you negative 24, and when added give you negative 5. Now you want to be careful, because you automatically think of the one that's most familiar to you, and for me, my most familiar combination is 4 and 6. But I can't add or subtract 4 and 6 in any way to get negative 5. So don't get stuck on that. Try another set of factors. What other two factors give you 24? Well, we have 8 and 3. So I have to make one negative and one positive. So the 8 is going to be my negative number, and the 3 will be my positive number. So I get a negative 24, and when I add them, I get a negative 5. So next, 6 to multiply, negative 5 to add. And again, that's when we always think 2 and 3. But you want to be careful, because I think 6 is one of the trickier ones, because you have 2 and 3 and 5 and 1. But we want to take note of the fact that in this case, I want both numbers to be positive when I multiply, but the addition is a negative number. So how can I multiply and get a positive number, but add and get a negative number? And the answer is two negative numbers. So what two numbers can I add to get negative 5, but when I multiply them, I get a positive 6? So that's going to be negative 2 and negative 3. And finally, the other combination that's forgotten a lot is 1 and the number itself. So when you're thinking factors for 15, you think 3 and 5, and you're like, well, they're the only factors. But don't forget that 15 times 1 is also 15. So that's a set of factors. And so we want to multiply to get a negative number. So again, that means we're going to have one positive and one negative number. And when we add, we're going to get a negative number. So our bigger number is going to be negative, and our smaller number is going to be positive. So the larger of these two factors here is 15. So the 15 will be a negative 15, and the 1 will be a positive 1. The next one, negative 75. And if you notice, we have a 10 in the bottom. So powers of 5 are not that hard to figure out. So multiples of 5. This one's pretty straightforward. You have to think for a second, because 75 is not a number we use very often. 3 and 25, yeah, because 3/4 is 75 cents. But we want to think beyond 25. And in this case, and again, we're going to have a positive number and a negative number. And we want the answer to be negative. So these two factors are going to be negative 15 and positive 5. So together, when I multiply them, I'll get a negative 75. And when I add negative 15 and 5, I get a negative 10. And then finally, the last one on this page is 12. And when I add, I get 7. So the two numbers I'm going to use are our old familiar friends. Everything's positive here, is 3 and 4. And again, don't forget, it's just as correct to write 4 and 3. Now you guys try the ones on the next page, and then check your answers. And then I did include another page here that you can do just to make sure you got it down. So good luck with these, and hopefully they're going to have you being able to factor something like, using the last one, x squared plus 7x plus 12 very quickly, because the answer is, see if you can follow the pattern here and see how we connected it to our diamond method. Good luck with these.